Alan, how many people are simply miserable because of this whole situation?
Well, my best estimate is that 85% of all borrowers will never be able to repay their loans. So that's 38 million people who are losing sleep at night. And the uptick in just horrible outcomes that we've seen, the suicides, even a terrible family suicide in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, a couple years ago. His family attempted to discharge their loans in bankruptcy, so they filed for bankruptcy. They found out the hard way that student loans, which were 94% of their debts, are uniquely non-dischargeable.
Right.
And they just completely lost hope. The mother and the father took the lives of their kids. They set their house on fire, took their own lives. It was just horrible. I'm sorry to even bring it up, but these are the sorts of tragedies that I can only think are going to be increasing dramatically going forward. So I hope that people in Washington, D.C. will at least do the right thing and at a minimum return those bankruptcy rights so that people, the most desperate among us, at least have some sort of recourse.
John in Wisconsin. Go ahead, John.
Hello, George. Hello, Alan. I have a brief story to share, please. I struggled through high school and barely graduated in 1975. My sister was a year older than me and gifted academically, and she went to a very expensive private school that my father paid all of her expenses. I got my nose out of joint because he was paying all this money for her schooling. He didn't have to pay anything for me. So to calm me down, he bought me a very expensive sports car. Well, over the next 3 years, I got my act together and wanted to go to school, and I enrolled in a state school where the tuition was reasonable. And my father said he would pay for my tuition, but I'd be responsible for all of my other expenses because he bought me that sports car, and that was fair. Well, I took out loans. I think it was between $5,000 and $6,000. This would have been 1979, 1980. And after college, I had a terrible battle with alcohol, all kinds of financial problems. I was not in a good situation, and I never paid my student loan back. I got my payment book, and I remember the first payment was $90 a month, and I never paid anything. I was a mess. Well, I walked away from that loan. Nobody ever chased me. It just kind of went away. Well, let's fast forward to today. The student loan program is a complete mess, which Alan has explained very well. And in my opinion, anytime you get the government or politics involved in people's personal lives, it never goes well. So, Alan, I want to thank you for being a voice for common sense, a voice for what is right. I hope other people will get on board with your agenda, and at least we can have student loans dismissed in bankruptcy court. Alan, thank you for all you do, and George, thank you for taking my call.
Take a bow, Alan.
Well, thank you, John. That's very kind. So there actually is some good news on that front. Over the past couple of months, we've heard people like Jerome Powell, chairman of the Federal Reserve. He came out and he questioned, in the way that he does, very mild-mannered guy, questioned the wisdom of removing bankruptcy for student loans. Second time he's done that. Joe Rogan, about three weeks or maybe a month ago, made very similar comments. And maybe more significantly, David Sachs, who is President Trump's crypto czar, he called unambiguously for the return of bankruptcy rights to student loans, maybe 3 weeks ago or so. So we're seeing a real groundswell of conservatives, including people like Matt Gaetz, Mike Cernovich, people from the Cato Institute. These are all very conservative Republican people. In a few cases, members of Congress, Josh Hawley, John Cornyn. So I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful that both parties will finally come together and do the right thing. I think that just the fact that the Department of Education, there's so much consternation from both sides of the aisle, but particularly among the Republicans, I think that all fares well. I think most people, if they don't intellectually realize how broken this lending program is and how dangerous it is, I do think they sort of understand it just sort of peripherally, sort of through osmosis or what have you. But I would urge everybody out there, we've got to fight, particularly if you have student loans.
Let's go to Gordon in Florida. Hey, Gordy, go ahead.
Long time no see. George, Alan, thanks for taking my call. Listen, for context, most people will know that I'm a regular caller, but some people don't know that I'm very conservative, and the predictions that I made several times have been very accurate. I'm not psychic, but I'm somehow or another, I'm going to make a prediction, and I want you guys to remember my track record. Now, what I'd like to call in and say is that Alan, and you were correct, but you guys are overlooking some key facts. Alan cites to the Constitution, which is important for us conservatives. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4 requires any bankruptcy law to be uniform. It's a type of equal protection. And also, we have a very dire shortage of doctors and nurses. And so here's the reason that I'd like to make a call to my fellow conservatives and liberals. Both of them are very wrong on issues. My fellow conservatives are a lot of old geezers that are about my age, and they got college that is like $100 or $200. Rick Scott, if you go to my website, I'm not going to throw it out unless you give me permission, but on my project website, I quote Rick Scott as saying the college was like a couple $100 back when I was in it was like a couple thousand, and they basically got free college. Now, here's my point. I'm going to make a prediction, okay? You can write this down, and I'm not going to put a timetable on it, but if bankruptcy rights are not returned to student loans, what's going to happen is it's going to not only hurt the taxpayer, it's not only going to hurt the student, of course, because college is going to remain unaffordable. It'll hurt the taxpayer, and the taxpayer's ahead, but it's going to go in reverse, and the Department of Ed is going to keep lending money. Now, here's my main point. I really owe an apology to both Trump, Democrats, and Republicans because I have not been hard enough on them to convince them to return bankruptcy rights to student loans. And all the Republicans that are like, oh, that student shouldn't pay back, he doesn't need bankruptcy rights, that reminds me of when Nancy Pelosi told people, oh, my private security force needs Second Amendment rights because we were threatened, which I agree with as a conservative. But you commoners don't need the Second Amendment. All these Republicans are like, Trump, and I don't mean any offense against Trump. I want Trump to hear this and do something positive and save his legacy. Trump is going down because his legacy is being hurt. Trump is not asking for student rights to have students to have bankruptcy defense when he himself had it repeatedly for billions, a whole bunch. And what I'm saying is that the conservatives listening to me, okay, listen to me real closely. I'm not saying the students should get any free handout. I'm saying that if students don't have bankruptcy defense, it's like when the police officers and good people don't have guns. If the students get bankruptcy rights back, it'll be no different than when you had basically free college and bankruptcy rights back when you had it. And there's no truth in lending, so the students are not told. And even if they are told, all these old geezers that are complaining, if they don't do anything to fix the problem, they're going to basically say, oh, we got rid of slavery back then, but now my grandson is going to have slavery and never repay the college debt. Now, Mike Rowe, for example, I agree with him. Not everyone needs to go to college, but currently no one can afford to go to college. No one can afford to go to college unless you're rich or something. We have a shortage of doctors and nurses, and these old geezers that are running their gator are going to croak because when they go to the doctors in the emergency room, there's not going to be enough doctors. We cannot afford to turn out American doctors. We get them from other countries, and I love my Pakistani and Afghani.
Take a breath here, Gordon, for a little bit. Would you agree with this, Alan?
Well, he raises some great points. If nothing is done, if at a minimum the standard bankruptcy rights are not returned to these loans, and this is something that Donald Trump's federal student aid chief, his name is Wayne Johnson, he said the same thing. We are going to see suffering on such a massive scale, it will have dire consequences for this country in general. When you take 40 million of your best and brightest citizens and you turn them from optimistic, patriotic people to seethingly resentful people that are, maybe living off the grid, they're running around with their tail in between their legs, they're running from this debt. Nothing good can happen. And as I said, we've seen so many horrible tragedies starting to happen just over the past 2 years. It's going to get very ugly. And Gordon is right, and Donald Trump knows. The Republicans know. Donald Trump himself understands very, very well the importance of bankruptcy rights. And so it's just a matter of the people in Washington finally getting around to doing the right thing. I think there's a big thing. There's a big political bonanza here for whatever party finally steps up to the plate. It could be the Republicans. I hope it is, quite frankly. The Democrats actually betrayed and abandoned us in 2022. We had a great bankruptcy bill. Dick Durbin was the sponsor. John Cornyn and Josh Hawley, two Republicans, were co-sponsors. And at the very last minute of that congressional session, they killed that bill. They didn't say why. They essentially tabled it. And this was like in December 2022. And boy, I'll tell you, that really opened my eyes about the Democrats. Both parties at this point, I would say, have betrayed and abandoned us. And we vote. You know, these are 39 million voters who are lying asleep at night. So ignore us at your great peril, I would tell the leaders of both parties.
We are going to be right back with Alan Collinge and take final phone calls as we talk about the student loan scam right here on Coast to Coast AM.
Coast Insiders, the new version of the Coast to Coast AM app is now available for iPhone and now Android 4.0 and above. Listen live or on demand anywhere, anytime. Go to coasttocoastam.com and download it today. Preacher, heard every Friday at 5 p.m. on Talk Radio, 96.7.
Jones & Jake, your one-stop custom shop. Customize your ride